Oh, man. What a decent afternoon snooze. It's a miracle! My ears! They're gone! But for some unexplained reason, I seem to have a huge fanboy interest in Sonic, 110% hunger for Coca-Cola, and the sudden urge to beat up someone with the name Mike.
I think I should hide.
I don't like fedoras. Anywho, I shouldn't be surprised with how many things get adapted into a movie, as many things get adapted into a video game as well, like TV shows, books, feature films, and theme parks. You heard me right, theme parks. It's nothing really new, as past games have done an amusement park theme concept before, but in the later 2000s they expanded to actual theme parks. The earliest I can think of is Walt Disney World Quest, Magical Racing Tour for the PlayStation 1. I never got to play it except for the Game Boy Color version. All I have to say is, meh. What I don't understand is why do you want to play a theme park game when you can just go to one? Well, aside from the high cost, with the plane tickets and the actual park itself, and the hotels you have to stay at, the restaurants, the gift shops, maybe they have a point. And this is where Universal Studios Theme Park's Adventure for the GameCube comes in. Now, I've read a lot of sites like IGN who claim that this is one of the worst video games of all time. It even remained one of the lowest rated GameCube games from NGC Magazine UK. Until Batman Dark Tomorrow, but it's that bad! But time has passed, and I do remember enjoying some of this as a kid, so let's see how this holds up. And already there are problems. I shouldn't nitpick too much on the character designs and low-rated graphics already, but answer me this. Are these the most ugly character designs you've ever seen? This is the most generic batch I've seen since the human characters from the Lost World Jurassic Park. But at least not as bad as the Who's and the Grinch, both for PlayStation. I understand these are kid characters, but man, I have never seen such an ugly batch in my life. And mind you, I want to have kids in the future. But not as generic and poorly rendered as this. So at the start, you enter into the park, and Woody Woodpecker is your guide to all this. Not only does he give you the straight facts on the park, but also is the ticket holder at the attractions. Because when I think Universal Studios, I think Woody Woodpecker. I can't say I'm that familiar with the character, and certainly don't hate him. But why choose him? I can understand he's licensed to the studio, and they're using him because it wouldn't be Universal Studios theme park without him, but for some reason, Woody just never left an impression on me. Except his trademark laugh, of course. Yeah. Well, nitpicking aside, the first problem is the game layout. Everywhere you move across the screen, it transitions to a different part of the park. And every time it does that, it's always the same static shot with people running around. You can't zoom in, the camera doesn't follow you, and you're very much left out in the open with dozens of parkgoers walking about. Sometimes it can be hard to grab an item because of how crowded it can get and how far away the camera is. Now, there is a map that can help you navigate where to go, but you need to get that at the start of the game to know where you are. But in order to do that, you need to talk to someone asking if you have a map. If you answer that you don't have one, you gotta go back to the start, ask one of the employees for one, and he will give you one. To access it, you have to press the X button, and it does give a good layout of the park. It doesn't help much seeing it's a blunt copy of an actual theme park map and only labels the attractions but not the other buildings. The only good thing I can say at the moment about the park scenes is that the designers did a fair job recreating the theme park, but what you're looking at is not Universal Studios Florida or Universal Studios Hollywood. As a kid, I was confused seeing it never looked exactly like the park. It wasn't until I found out more recently this game was designed after Universal Studios Japan. At least the Universal Studios Japan from 2001 till it was refurbished. I guess that explains why there's a Backdraft ride, because the American version never got one. But I can at least give it leeway for one thing. The Back to the Future ride! Baby, we meet again. Thus, we'll save you for last. Let's start with Jaws! In order to play the game, you go to Woody and press the A button after he asks you if you want to go in. He'll give you a rundown of how to play the game, and surprisingly more animated than its stiff counterpart who's layered throughout the theme park. All he does there is just stand there and watch your every move. It feels kinda creepy if you ask me. So, on to Jaws, and what a mess it is. And by the way, they named the shark here Jaws. Because, you know, the movie is called Jaws, so why not? Your goal is to stop Jaws from eating the orca boat by throwing all sorts of things at him, like barrels, kegs, and other things. There are some wooden crates on the orca that have some power-ups, like dynamite, grenades, and even bottles of stuff that look like whiskey. Because when it comes to stopping a shark, a good bottle of alcohol comes to mind as a weapon. You toss the things at him by pressing the B button. You can track the shark's movement on a scanner and a health bar for the boat indicating his next attack. Also, if he takes a bite where you are and find yourself dangling on the edge, just keep pressing the A button until you're back on deck. This is fine and all, but look at the boat! It's so overcrowded to the point I have a hard time trying to get to the next spot Jaws will attack. If you miss your chance to hit him, he'll take a big bite of your boat. With so much stuff in the way, it's very hard to move from one place to the next. And I didn't think I'd say this, but we need a bigger boat. Literally! And when you toss your stuff at Jaws, you have to toss it the minute you first see him. Even if he appears a second after, he will take a bite of your ship. Once he takes all bites out of the orca, it's game over. You do have the option to try again, but when I was playing this, I accidentally hit no without thinking, and that leads to another problem. Once you leave the game, you can never enter back due to the long line of people. They never mention this, but you are given an E-Pass, which gives you a chance to go onto the ride. Once you exit or finish the game, you can't return to it because there are too many people in line. In fact, it's the same place everywhere! And this is the ultimate flaw. You are left with a good, boring slice of time, with nothing to do. I am dead serious. Though I do take that back. There are two attractions you can do when you're at this point. One is Waterworld, but it's not a ride. It's a demonstration of the climax from the actual stunt show. You can see this in many different angles, and each time you visit, you get 100 points. What a wasted opportunity! And besides, being a fan of this movie, and I mean a true fan of this movie to the point I actually purchased the extended edition. Yes, folks, a longer version existed. That'll be another story for another day. I can honestly say that I am truly ashamed of what they did here. There is so much potential. You could have been riding around on a jet ski over the atoll. You could be fighting off smokers in the mariner's boat. But no, it's just a waste. Waterworld on the Virtual Boy was more commendable than this, if you ask me. Anyway, the other free-line attraction is really a quiz game. You visit Winnie Woodpecker, and she'll test your knowledge of movies. Some are easy, but then you get ones that are really trivia-based, like who directed this, and minor tidbits here and there. You need to get at least 7 questions right, but even after you do that, they will toss at you extra questions so you can qualify for the amount you botched up on. The more I play this, I can only think what a kid would be doing during this game. I know it's rated T for teens, but this whole game could be arguably for kids too, with the idea of visiting different attractions and stuff. And when it comes to stuff like this, the last thing you would expect from him to know is any movie facts.
You need to watch more movies.
I need to watch more movies. Understatement of this April Fool's special. Once you beat it, you get to unlock 2 other mini-games, but I didn't have any interest in playing them for this review. They're just a card matching game and a puzzle. Nothing special. So now I mentioned that you receive points. What to use them for? Well, if you go all the way back to the start and talk with Woody, you can exchange your points for useful items, like hats that can get you access to the rides, footwear that can make you go faster around the parks, and even e-passes. But you want the hat, seeing they'll give you unlimited access to the rides. Now there are certain ways to gain points, the obvious being the rides. But the one you'll find doing the most throughout this game is picking up trash and tossing it. It's the easiest and most depressing element of the game. When I go to a park, I want to have fun, not act like a Cub Scout and spend the entire time picking up someone else's litter and throwing it away for them. I guess the message here is to keep the park clean, but this is too far. And the garbage doesn't even look remotely like garbage. It's like mutated paper or crumbled up news clippings. The other way to gain points is through small things. You can walk about and meet certain characters like Chili Willy, E.T., and the creature from the Black Lagoon. Basically, you shake hands with them, and once you do, you get points for it. Let's see that again. As if we didn't have enough bad touch in this world. Aside from garbage, at one point you have to find someone's missing cell phone and return it to her. You do this by talking to one of them and finding the phone. The biggest problem is trying to return it to her. She will tell you to meet at this place, and after that, you'll have no time but to try and meet her there before she moves to another location. Most of the time I've played this, she always tells me she's going to another spot. And how exactly is she communicating with me when her phone is missing? Maybe she had no choice but to borrow E.T.'s. And I don't know about you, but this calls for an advert break. At least something to perk up your spirits after all the boredom that we've just had. But when we return, we got more park to cover.
Kids can go absolutely wild at Universal Studios Florida. Screaming, flying, blasting, gasping, thrilling, rocking, rolling, shaking, laughing, and jamming. Only at Universal Studios Florida, home of Nickelodeon Studios. So don't miss it. Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, where kids have more fun than anyone. Well, almost anyone.
When is too much too much? To find out, we crammed everything into Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. 60 more levels, massive enemies, huge Yoshi tricks, all served up with the latest graphic technology, Morphmation.
No more.
Sure you don't have room for another little bonus level? Super Mario World 2, only on the Super NES. Still the big one.
So before we continue, I just want to mention there is a way to get an E-Pass for free, but it can only happen once. After you just spent your first one, you go all the way back to where Woody is and talk to an employee. He'll give you an extra one, and this will give you an access to another attraction. For this one, I use it on Jurassic Park. Of all the games in this, Jurassic Park is one of the few I can tolerate. But it still has problems. You're on a Jeep tour of the park, and while your guide navigates you, you get to shoot down the dinosaurs with a laser gun. And I mean any kind, from the T-Rex, the Pterodons, Stegosaurus, Triceratops, and even raptors. A whole boatload of raptors. Seriously, a huge mob of raptors are after you, and their goal is to ram the car. Much like Jaws, if all parts of the car are in critical condition, the game ends. Again, a G-rated element that questions why was this rated T for teens? To fire, you point the laser at the dinosaurs and hit B. But if you hold down the A button, it will charge the laser to unleash a powerful hit. Trust me, you're better off holding the A button than frequently tapping it. That is, till you get to the raptors. The super laser will easily lock onto the moving targets, and depending on how much long you're holding it down for, the more powerful the hit will be. Once in a while, you'll be told to hang on when going over rough terrarium, so be sure to hold down the L and R button at the right time when told to. Or else, it will take you a while till you can get back on your feet. While it's not a bad game, my only problem is how sensitive the joystick is moving the gun, and the crowded raptors that are coming after you. Seriously, how many more frickin' raptors do we need here? I guess that's what happens when you let John Hammond breed raptors. Thanks, old-timer. You'll certainly decrease the surplus population that way. The T-Rex appears at the beginning and the end of the game. At the end, you have to hit him in a certain weak spot to get him to slow down. You can't hold down the A button this time, but have no choice but to shoot him in a certain place or he will ram your Jeep. And it doesn't help when you have to turn corners, so the gun's aim moves with it, even when you have it aimed in the spot you need it in. So far, this is the only good thing in this entire game. Now here, I should explain how to access your hats. If you press the Z button, a mini menu appears, and you go to Items. There, you'll find all the collected items, and choose the one you want with the A button, and go to the attraction. Not to nitpick too much, but would it make more sense to use the oftenly pressed Start button? You know, the one that's used in games for pausing and sometimes selecting an item? Why use the Z button? I can barely think of a game that uses this button to great ability. Oh, and just so you know, the Start button does nothing when you're in the park. It only starts the games. Because, yeah, that's useful! Next up is E.T. Adventure. By the way, is it just me, or is this game dominated by too many Spielberg movies? I know they are part of the park, but there are other things you could use, like Nickelodeon Studios or Monster Maker. Shame they're there for background decoration. Anyway, the goal is to get E.T. to a spaceship, much like the attraction, and you have a small amount of time to get him there. But seeing how easy this one is, you have no problem getting through obstacles like cars, boulders, collapsing turf, and huge ponds of water. To pedal the bike, use the A button and the B button to brake. At times you get to jump off ramps, but you have to slightly move the control stick to maintain balance, or you'll keep falling over. Poor E.T. When you arrive midway, you get a brief recreation of the bike flying past the moon scene like in the movie. Not a bad touch, but the gameplay for this one is too simple. You could close your eyes or put your head in a bucket full of piranhas and still beat this one. With few obstacles, the better chance you win. Pity as I really love the movie E.T., but this attraction game is just forgettable when you really put all the others into the mix. Just a basic side-scroller, nothing special. Next up, Backdraft. Surprisingly, this one is based on an attraction, but like I said, it's the only one in Japan. So you're a firefighter going about and trying to save people in a burning building. You use the nozzle to put out all the fires by pressing the A button and aim with the control stick. Oh my god. Seriously. It looks like I'm using my own urine to put out a fire. Even the nozzle is near the crotch, so... yeah! I'm putting out fires with my pee! The basic object is to go around, put out all the fires, and save all the civilians. As you do that, you dodge catapulted barrels, exploding windows, and fireballs by pressing the X button. This is a tricky one to play, not just because of the time limit, but by how the whole thing is staged. The camera does zoom in at times, but a little too close, making the whole gameplay feel claustrophobic. There's too much stuff placed around, so it makes it harder to know where to go. For example, it took me a good whole 2.5 minutes to find the right way to get out of the room, all thanks to the shoddy coloring on the wire fences and the placement of the camera. Now that I think about it, I can see why it got a T for Teens rating. The idea of going into a burning building and rescuing trapped people does sound a little upsetting. And if this game wasn't sad enough with the trash picking, they had to use this as a game for a theme park attraction. I want to have fun, not do something serious like this. Next up is the Wild 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 West. Based on its stunt show, and not the crummy Will Smith blockbuster, but I can see how you can get the two easily mixed up. You're a cowboy going up against 3 different gunslingers, and it's a simple shootout game where you have to hit targets, cans, bottles, and some bonus targets that get you 500 points. Hit any windows or other objects, and points get taken away. Use A to shoot, and oddly enough you have to press the L or R button to reload. And it doesn't help that when you use the control stick for the gun, it's a bit stiff at times. Not to mention that CPU's quick, so it takes a lot of practice to catch up to him. It's my least favorite of the bunch, and you can see why. I was never good at these kinds of shoot-'em-up games, and it sadly shows. Okay. We've dealt with sharks, we've dealt with dinosaurs, we've dealt with cowboys and aliens, and natural disasters. There is one saving grace left. And let's hope it lives up to it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The best is saved for last. Let's play Back to the Future, The Ride! And let me tell you, does this one deliver? This is by far the only game to follow its attraction. At least, the only one I know of. You get to fly around in the time-traveling DeLorean and chase after Biff, who stole one. And, of course, you have to bump him, just like in The Ride. You fly through Hill Valley 2015, the Ice Age, and even the Prehistoric Age that is represented by lava trail and flying fireballs. I like the idea, even considering how I always wanted to pilot the DeLorean. But there's one big thing that kills it. The gameplay! As I drive around, I find it difficult to steer with the control stick. You accelerate using the A button, and brakes with the B button. I've played this one the most out of any of the other attractions to try and beat it, and I find it hard when you have to slow down to get past the sharp corners, and at the same time, you have to try and hit Biff when you get a good shot. But even when I get a chance, he either moves to the side or flies about. And I've tried everything in the book to see if I can try and beat him, but nothing works. I stay in the middle, but keep drifting to the sides. Press the brake button to avoid smashing into walls, but I don't want to slow down, I want to catch up before he fucks around with time. He also spews out the most generic insults I've ever heard to date.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey, what's up? Yeah!
Really? No. What are you looking at, butthead? Just basic jargon that any normal enemy would say? Well, I give it props to letting me drive in the car, but this one was too hard for me to beat.
What? You let Biff escape? You must be joking. I can't believe it.
Sorry, mate, but I'm gonna make like a tree and get out! Now, believe it or not, there are 2 ways to beat Universal Studios. At the end of each game, you're given a stamp, one red or one blue depending on how well you do. Aside from attractions, you also go around and collect letters that are scattered across the park. Once you collect each of them, that forms the word Universal Studios. Funny, they have the trademark logo. You return to Woody at the beginning, and he'll ask you if you want to do something called Hollywood Magic. Choose that, and the game will end with a reflection of the things you did. In conclusion, it has a good concept and ideas in place, but the entire game feels unfinished and not fully realized. I like the idea of having a theme park-based video game, but it's based off of another version of the actual park, has pointless meandering that could have been used as maybe some narrative like with Walt Disney World Quest, games you can easily win at, games you can barely and if rarely accomplish, elements used more for explore than just plot down for background, has terrible maneuvering on some of the games, poorly designed, and above all, a bore when you have to spend a good chunk of your time collecting garbage for points than having actual fun. Well, you know what? I'm through with being this park's garbage boy, and to be honest, I've been to Universal Studios in Orlando, and it was a whole lot more fun than this. I got to be in Nickelodeon's games, see the actual DeLorean from the movie, eat at Mel's Drive-In, capture Jaws, visit the House of Blues, go on the Jurassic Park ride, and even fly with E.T. That is far more enjoyable and certainly worth it. This game at least tried to replicate that, but it comes off as a bore for me and being a waste of time than rather something enjoyable. If you want to kill time by doing pointless tasks for hours on end, go ahead and give it a shot. But if you want something better, just visit the actual park, then play a commercialized video game that feels more like an advertisement and less like fun. I rate this game negative 0.60 bajillion out of 100. It's a shame I was able to beat every bit of it, but it's better than nothing, right?
Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one.
Not until that bugger is captured, everything will be accomplished. Well, I may not have defeated the entire game. Ooh. But at least I accomplished something. Cut.